Ramman Origin, HeMan. Ramman is a charming clown and brave warrior. He made an appearance in the animated TV series HeMan and the Masters of the Universe from 1983 to 1984. Heroic and without any prior history, Ramman is a warrior. He resembles a D&D dwarf in heavy armor without a beard. Ramman is only a passenger in numerous episodes accompanying the heroes on their adventures, taking on the enemies and joking or passing blatantly obvious remarks. Ramman and Stratos frequently work together in the first episodes. He cannot move his head because of his armor's enormous helmet and shoulders. To survive Ramman's standard assault form, the armor must be durable. On the clasp of his broad belt is a skull. He is covered in galvanized steel and red and black leather. Most of the time, Ramman is used as comic relief. Being honest, he will provide you with a direct response if you ask him a direct question. Though pleasant, he has a sluggish mind. He nearly seems to have a childlike mentality. Let us find out more about Ramman and his origins in our video today. Welcome back to another marvelous videos. This is DeV. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you, and let's begin. Ramman in early mini-comics. While protecting a region of Eternia, which Ramman claimed as his own, HeMan was the first person Ramman encountered. HeMan was traveling through the region in the attack track when he was stopped. Ramman believed HeMan was attempting to fool him when HeMan informed Ramman he was on a crucial assignment, so Ramman assaulted him by using the track as a wrecking ball. Ramman was quickly defeated by HeMan, utilizing his greater power, and HeMan then continued. Almost quickly after, Skeletor and Beastman materialized together with two other outsiders. According to Skeletor, they were all HeMan's adversaries, the horror of all Eternia, and they required Ramman's assistance to take down HeMan in his Castle Grayskull. The foolish Ramman consented to aid the two newcomers right away since he thought they were nice. Skeletor instructed Ramman to utilize his ramming prowess to undermine the castle's drawbridge. Ramman wanted to stop when he became tired, and Skeletor forbade him by using the mysterious abilities of his portion of the Power Sword to make Ramman keep going. Skeletor and Beastman fought the valiant warrior until HeMan appeared and ordered Skeletor to free Ramman from his dark spell. Ramman finally stopped battering the drawbridge door after realizing Beastman and Skeletor were evil and that HeMan wasn't in the castle. In order to vanquish HeMan, Skeletor used some of the magical force from his sword, but inadvertently freed Ramman from its hold. Despite being worn out, Ramman assaulted Skeletor as he prepared to strike HeMan fatally. Skeletor and Beastman vanished in a cloud of smoke as HeMan and Ramman united to take against them. The chances were no more in their favor. HeMan and Ramman immediately put aside their prior hesitations and forged a friendship. Ramman later became a devoted soldier in the Heroic Warriors. Ramman's initial color palette was inspired by an early design idea that was also used for toy cross-sell artwork.
Watch out! I can't steer!
Ramman backstory in HeMan and the Masters of the Universe Filmation series. The 1980s animation HeMan and the Masters of the Universe by Filmation shows Ramman as a little dwarfish character which is similar in appearance to his live-action figure with its legs retracted. Ramman is represented as massive and violent in his mini-comic appearance. Ramman's aggression is tempered for the series in order to make the personality more kid-friendly for the benefit of the show's target audience. Generally speaking, he is presented as a funny character who is sluggish, dim-witted, and has an almost infantile mindset, but who is nonetheless strong-hearted and likable. Early episodes frequently feature him with Stratos, and later ones more fully develop his individuality. In particular, the second season episode, Not So Blind, reveals some compassion in his typical comedic nature. He acknowledges being slow to learn, but not inherently dumb in this episode. Ramman also had a remarkable moment in the House of Shakoti Part 1 episode when he gave a memorable moral to the kids at the show's close, warning them not to strike objects with their heads like he does for fear of injuring themselves. Ramman also annoys Shakoti in this episode by repeatedly pronouncing her name incorrectly, calling her Shipoopy. among other things. Another comical characteristic of this Ramman is that he occasionally has spring-like legs and makes boing noises while using his powers. Let us talk about the He-Man and the Masters of the Universe 19th episode, Quest for He-Man, directed by Steve Clark and written by Paul Dini. The Warriors of Eternia must turn to Zodak for assistance in order to save their comrade when Skeletor erases He-Man's memories and transports him to an unidentified reality. Attackers Skeletor, Evelyn, Trapjaw, and Triclops attack the royal palace. Orko joins He-Man as they pursue a Wind Raider. Triclops boos He-Man and Ramman, then obliterates his war sled. Triclops is the target of a freeze ray from Man-at-Arms, and Trapjaw lures He-Man to look for him. He-Man pursues him, but it's a trap. He gets stuck in a force field and meets Skeletor and Evelyn there, but Orko manages to get away. Orko saw Skeletor banishing He-Man from Eternia all the way to an unidentified dimension after using a spell to erase He-Man's memories. Trapjaw cannot flee because he and Triclops are apprehended and imprisoned at the royal palace, while Evelyn and Skeletor successfully escape. Ramman, Man-at-Arms, Cringer, and Orko visit Castle Grayskull to discuss the matter with the sorceress. The sorceress requests Zodak's assistance in locating He-Man. Zodak instructs everyone that Cringer, Orko, and Ramman should look for He-Man when he arrives. Orko receives Zodak's wand to discover the realm that He-Man has come in. An amnesic He-Man whom Skeletor has banished to an unknown dimension awakens, holding a sword but no memory of how he got there or what he was doing. Gleedle, a bizarre lady with a bird's head, makes an appearance when she misidentifies He-Man as one of Plundor's henchmen and thinks he is harming the unusual animals. He-Man observes that Gleedle reminds him of the sorceress, but he cannot identify her due to his amnesia. As she brings He-Man to her house with the creatures accompanying them, Gleedle resolves to aid her new friend after realizing that He-Man is speaking the truth about being a stranger in her world. Cringer, Orko, and Ramman start looking for He-Man as soon as they reach the unknown dimension and discover his power sword. He-Man is led to Gleedle's house in the meanwhile, where she introduces herself and informs him the name of her planet is Tyrannus. He-Man manages to take down one of the bots, albeit he is perplexed about how he did it so quickly. Gleedle and He-Man were rendered unconscious by the other robots' use of sleep smoke, and they were subsequently brought to Plundor's lair. Orko, Ramman, and Cringer came across Gleedle's pet tiger while searching for He-Man, informing them of his master and He-Man's captivity. In front of Plundor's lair, Orko, Ramman, Cringer, and Gleedle's beloved tiger were formulating a strategy to enter the stronghold and rescue their companions, when one of his robots suddenly materialized behind him. Orko and Ramman, Cringer, and Gleedle's pet tiger arrived with a beaten robot before Gleedle and He-Man were imprisoned by Plundor, shocking the spoiler of their presence. He-Man was stunned to hear what Ramman named him when he mentioned him. To summon his robots to his cave and take good care of everyone, Plundor presses one of his buttons. Orko approached his pal and inquired whether He-Man knew him rather than if he remembered anything. Orko informed He-Man that even if he talked to him about his home, he might recall where it was, but he couldn't because of what Zodak had said. He-Man follows Orko after learning that Castle Grayskull is the solution, while Ramman battles more of Plundor's robots, demonstrating his faith in him despite not recognizing him. By preventing the rocket from exploding, He-Man overcomes him, and the world is put back in its original state as He-Man and his comrades are on their way back to Eternia. Gleedle orders Plundor to demolish his own cavern as retribution for his misdeeds. Now let us return to the 101st episode of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, titled Not So Blind, where He-Man and Ramman befriends a young child and they accompany him on a journey that takes a perilous turn when the protagonists become blind. In the marketplace, Prince Adam hears an older man telling some kids tales of He-Man's adventures. He decides to join in. Adam responds to a youngster who wonders presciently why He-Man doesn't simply crush Skeletor into a pile of bones by saying that He-Man strives not to harm any living thing. The children and I are both unpersuaded by his feeble explanation that Skeletor would one day be penalized for his wrongdoing. With the exception of a blind youngster, All the kids go. For no apparent reason, he goes by the name Luz and requests to see He-Man. Luz accepts Adam's invitation to embark on an expedition with He-Man. He takes Adam home after first getting his parents' acceptance. At this point, it becomes quite evident that although Luz is blind, he is still more than equipped to take care of himself. Because Adam goes on to present Luz to Ramman, who is unquestionably not the guy I'd most like to meet if I traveled to Eternia, it is clear that Adam has made up his mind that he doesn't like Luz very much. Luz touches Ramman's face and asks him several questions such as, "Where is your neck?" and "How do you tilt your head?" while Adam bursts off to transform into He-Man. All of this is meant to show how the blind youngster can see just as well as the rest of us. However, it is also dangerously approaches highlighting how ridiculous Ramman's character design is. The entire scene has the feel of the opening of a cruise in the He-Man theme park. I could just picture a large group of people being crammed into a makeshift attack track while Ramman and He-Man spout overwrought dialogue about looking for something interesting and unusual simply for fun. Now He-Man shows up and presents himself to Luz before advising the group to search for the fabled singing crystals. Perhaps both of them will start a business together once they retire. The three friends continue their journey across the bush as Luz describes how he navigates using his other senses. This is seen in a few relatively minor sequences of subtlety where Ramman trips over a stone that Luz had managed to avoid, and Luz determines the age of a bridge by touching the rope and hearing the wooden planks. The singing crystals are brilliant and shimmering when they are finally reached, but more significantly for Luz, they really sing when touched. Sadly, one of the special crystals breaks and explodes brightly, blinding He-Man and Ramman since they were both foolish enough to stare directly at it. Luz is unsure of what to do and declares that he will be able to guide the group home. Until they reach the old bridge, he does so with relative ease. The bridge falls at one end while they are on it, leaving the three of them clinging on for their lives and unable to ascend since the planks are loose. He-Man successfully hoists the group by throwing a lasso onto a neighboring tree, a skill that usually comes easily to him but proves challenging while he is blind. Before making it back to the castle where Man-at-Arms restores He-Man's sight, in addition to his many other roles, the group successfully navigates a number of additional dangers. Ramman's sight being restored is not explicitly mentioned, but I believe we can assume that it also occurs. The other kids call Luz a liar when he tells the story to them, but He-Man shows up and gives him some credibility. Ramman in the 2002 TV series. The present series' version of Ramman, who appears in the Masters of the Universe reboot, is somewhat of a mashup of his Filmation depiction and his first mini-comic portrayal. He is shown here once more as a significant, massive figure rather than a little one, and is more prominent than even He-Man. He seems to have a metallic plate atop his skull in episodes where he takes off his helmet. Ramman dashes into opponents or makes close leaps at them, as opposed to launching himself at them from a large distance. His limbs never uncoil like hinges, and the boing noise stops. In this series, Ramman seldom experiences negative consequences from his rams. He is the sole master who regularly uses no weapons in battle. His slow-wittedness and humorous charm are retained despite the fact that this series portrays him in a way that is more in line with the character's original notion, and is more manly. His character still has a youthful quality mostly seen in the episode Ninth of the Shadow Beasts, which show he is terrified and dark. Perhaps the most crucial episode for him in the current series is Siren's Song, when he is captured by Evelyn and accused of betraying the Masters after falling under her influence. Ramman is depicted as agitated and unnecessarily protective when the Masters strive to find the traitor within their ranks, since he is oblivious to the sin he had committed while in a trance. In the episode Siren's Song, after another battle with Skeletor's army, Man-at-Arms reveals to the rest of the Masters the reality about Grayskull, as well as the magic it contains. Ramman is the master chosen by Evelyn because of his everlasting commitment to imbue each of the Masters as well as make them betray the others to confuse their enemies. Ramman is enchanted by Evelyn when she is posing as a gorgeous siren, and each time he listens to her music, he submits. The evil warriors use Ramman to take Man-at-Arms' most recent invention, the kinetic immobilizer. But as he delivers it, Adam and Teela gets a glimpse of him. Ramman is exposed as the spy, despite his claims that he had no idea what he was doing. Skeletor and Evelyn take advantage of this and have Ramman escape from jail to trick the Masters. Skeletor uses the kinetic immobilizer to try to freeze the Masters, but Man-at-Arms interrupts him, revealing that Ramman's arrest was orchestrated and that they are conscious of his brainwashing, and stating that this gadget needs an activation code. The kinetic immobilizer then immobilizes the evil warriors, but Evelyn later steals it back and immobilizes the Masters, as she schemes to seize control of Grayskull all for herself. She uses the hypnosis of her siren form to get rid of HeMan, but Ramman attacks and destroys the immobilizer, releasing HeMan and setting everyone free. The Masters take Ramman back, and he apologizes to Buzz Off for his unkind treatment of him. While the episode Night of the Shadow Beasts starts, where the Shadow Beasts, ferocious strong animals who can only move in complete darkness, are described to Skeletor by Beastman. Skeletor blocks the vents of a massive volcano in the Dark Hemisphere so that it keeps erupting and spewing smoke into the sky to employ them. HeMan goes to Castle Grayskull to guard it against Skeletor, while the Masters are soon forced to protect the royal palace from the Shadow Beasts and the evil warriors. Ramman is stuck underground with Teela throughout the conflict and is forced to face his hidden dread of the dark. He eventually conquers this fear by bravely protecting her from the Shadow Beasts. At Castle Grayskull, HeMan faces up against the Beasts and Skeletor. The sorceress fires a beam of light as the creatures and HeMan slashes through the volcano, using his sword to put an end to the eruption. Skeletor punishes his troops for failing to demolish the palace by locking them in a chamber with the Shadow Beasts back on Snake Mountain.
Thank you, young lady.
I didn't do it.
Ramman is reimagined as a young female named Crass in the 2021 Netflix series HeMan and the Masters of the Universe. One of the primary characters in HeMan and the Masters of the Universe is Crass, who is also Ramman's alter ego and briefly Rampage. Crass is a bold, headstrong, and driven young lady who frequently jumps into conflict without thinking. She loves and cares for the tiger tribe and her family and would endure hardships to defend them and their home in the forest. Since King Randor does little to halt hunters and other rabble-rousers in the woods, Crass has no fondness or regard for the royal house of Eternos. She plainly admits to the king, "I didn't do it for you," after he thanked Crass for sparing his life, that she did it because she cares enough about Adam to protect Randor on his behalf. On Eternia, Crastine, more often known as Crass, was born into the tiger tribe. As a result, she was reared as a human while coexisting with big, intelligent tigers. Adam was a little child that the tiger tribe had taken in to become her best buddy. Crass lost her parents in a car accident at some time in her childhood. The tribe struggled for 3 days to extricate her from the rubble. Crass used her father's helmet to stay alive. After this terrifying incident, Crass never again allowed the helmet to leave her sight. One day, Crass discovered that Cringer was AWOL after departing on his own to go hunting. Crass and Adam launched a rescue operation to release Cringer, who had been abducted by poacher bots and was transported to his previous master, Rick Haas, after assisting Adam in saving the baby tiger cub Kitty. Adam and Crass defeated the poacher bots, crashed their spacecraft, and freed Cringer by simulating a game of Ramball. They were astonished to see a young hand witch named Teela sitting in a tree when they returned to their community. The tribe quickly jailed Teela after using part of her power, and Crass feared that this vibrant magic wielding might tempt Adam to quit the tribe. The settlement was soon assaulted by Evelyn, Cronus, and Duncan, who had previously worked with Teela using modified poacher bots. Crass attempted to run over Duncan as the bots started to burn down the town, but Cringer prevented her because Duncan had just realized his mistake and had recently saved Cringer from a bot. Crass watched as Adam retrieved the sword of Grayskull that Teela had carried with her into the fray. Magical runes were projected around the sword's blade due to the interaction between the crest on his cuff and the one on its hilt. Adam became the most powerful man in the universe when he said the mystical words, "By the power of Grayskull, I have the power." The youthful heroes were assaulted the following morning by a sizable swarm of poacher bots. Unexpectedly, Skeletor, who identified himself as Adam's uncle, assisted them. However, Skeletor quickly seized the sword, slashed his nephew, and ordered Cronus, positioned on a boulder out of view, to launch rockets at the remaining foes. Crass found herself trapped within the Wind Raider, a position that made her regretfully recall her parents' deaths. After Duncan started the Raider's engines using a remote control, releasing Adam and Teela from the rocks, she could slam the door wide open just enough for them to board. By picking the latch on her handcuffs, Teela released herself, allowing Cringer and the kids to escape. HeMan chose to distribute the power among all of his pals after erecting a wall between them and the enemies. As Ramman, Crass assisted Cringer, now known as Battlecat, in battling his own shadow which Evelyn's sorcery had brought to life. To free himself and his two companions, Skeletor threw this scepter into the force emanating from the chamber. When a troop of royal guards whose carriage wrecked into the Badlands called Duncan for assistance, Teela and Crass first refused to aid, but eventually agreed. Adam wields the sword in Badlands to bolster himself and his comrades, but Teela opts to remain as she was rather than transform into the sorceress. While Teela stayed in Grayskull, Adam, Crass, and Cringer decided to investigate the Tiger Tribe to discover Skeletor's whereabouts, while Crass and Adam were captured in a snare by the predator Rikaz, who had Adam's sword. Cringer was attacked by poacher bots. After escaping from a net, Crass and Adam came to Cringer's aid, but Cringer sensed Grayskull's power running through him to the new claws Duncan had built, prompting him to call on the power itself and transform into Battlecat without using the Sword of Grayskull, which was at the time in Rikaz's possession. Along with Crass, Adam also turned after grabbing the sword. While facing Rikaz, Battlecat warned HeMan and Ramman not to harm the three tigers within Rikaz's power. The other three tigers' enchantment was shattered and they resumed their regular selves as Cringer seized the Hunter's Lash and Control gadget. Ramman thought they should wait and guard the Tiger Tribe settlement, but HeMan objected since he felt his responsibilities had grown. Ramman became enraged and started walking toward the hamlet on her own when Battlecat allied with HeMan. When the remaining masters traveled to Snake Mountain to battle Skeletor, Orko returned to the hamlet to get Crass. Crass declined, claiming that she was occupied defending Navitz as Ramman from the poacher bots. She immediately changed back to her regular shape while dealing with a bot as Ramman, at which point she recognized that something had happened to the Sword of Grayskull, the source of her strength. As they soared to Snake Mountain to save their companions, Crass ran a jump to perch on Orko's back. The other masters would have drowned in the Havoc fluid if they hadn't arrived on time. When Teela realized that she had a new teleportation ability because she thought the Wind Raider was moving too slowly, the masters materialized far above Eternos. They disabled as much of the Red Legion's red sky sleds as they started to fall. Teela decides to attack the Black Power source, Skeletor's staff, and HeMan knows that Skeletor is pursuing King Randor. Skeletor, along with his Dark Masters, met them as they approached the palace, and the Valiant Masters made an effort to seize the Havoc staff. Skeletor, however, disclosed that he has now seized command of every guard in Eternos, as well as had dispatched the Red Legion to assault Castle Grayskull. King Randor was among the heroes who were teleported to a neighboring area of safety by Orko using a spell. Adam disarmed the masters there, using the sword to get in touch with Eldris. Adam, Duncan, Cringer, and Crass boarded the Wind Raider and traveled back to Grayskull. Crass recommended Eldris move the castle using her abilities. Despite her frailty, Eldris knew she had little influence over where it might reappear. Eldris said, and now a new adventure starts, as she shut the drawbridge after the Wind Raider had entered the castle. What makes Ramman so strong? Ramman assists his charged salts with his spring-loaded jumping ability. His legs are actually springs, and as he moves around, he even makes a sproing sound. His armor shields his head and chest area. However, it isn't too hefty to make Ramman swim poorly. Even when dozing, he is rarely seen without his armor. Ramman is skilled with the several vehicles that Duncan keeps up at the Royal Palace. Rami is not particularly intelligent, but he is undoubtedly brave. Ramman once used a single strike to eliminate 6 of Skeletor's robot knights. Triclops lost 6 to HeMan during Sky Sled combat. Triclops managed to dodge HeMan's firing by stating he could see every shot coming and avoid it. Triclops was unable to see below him though. His Sky Sled was destroyed as Ramman leapt up. Ramman once defeated the lousy guy Jitsu. He destroyed the robot spiders by taking down Trapjaw's stronghold. Ramman once used his skull to slam a moving boulder a la Indiana Jones. Crass first employed the power of Grayskull before getting lost and embracing Havoc. Crass, however, restored her former abilities and reclaimed her title as Ramman, Masters of Demolition, after fully recognizing the road she was traveling and all the lessons she had learned. As Ramman, Master of Demolition, Crass used to wield the power of Grayskull. She adopted Havoc after becoming lost and transformed into Rampage, the Dark Master of Destruction. Crass discovered her own power and utilized it to reclaim her abilities and take the shape of Ramman after atoning for her transgressions and becoming a genuine master of the universe. She was given a Punk Energy helmet and booster rockets on her calves as a result after she sacrificed her Urel helmet to protect Adam. Once more, the color of her uniform altered, taking on a more global hue to signify her ascension to the rank of a real master of the universe. Ramman is tougher than she usually is, and the boosters on her calves enable her to travel at dizzying speeds without harming herself. She is so powerful and quick that she can defeat HeMan when she was Rampage, but also when HeMan was cautious and didn't want to injure her. Nevertheless, she is a formidable warrior who develops her own special combat technique by combining her abilities with her talent for playing Ramball. In order to slingshot or swing herself in certain directions, directly at anything, or to come to a complete halt, Ramman can construct power cords from her arms or hips. Energy radiates from the impact sites to push or blast everything in the area away. She can employ her helmet to hit a target with a powerful blow without risking harm to herself. Ramman may change into a human cannonball by enclosing herself in an energy sphere. The sphere moves more quickly the more she strikes anything. However, excessive usage might harm her. During HeMan and Ramman's combination assault, Ramman launches herself right into the air with a sword of power, then employs Wrecking Ball to separate herself into smaller pieces and rotates quickly in the other direction. HeMan creates 9 enormous universally themed copies of the Sword of Power on the ground, which move in response to the original. He then spins the copies so quickly that they become saws. HeMan fires the saws at an opponent, tearing them to bits or blasting them back with great force as Ramman's Ramballs descend and integrate into them, giving them strength. Marvelous verdict. Ramman is trustworthy and devoted. He stands up for his buddies because he has a huge heart. Ramman and Man-E faces disagreed but later became close friends. Episode The Shadow of Skeletor. Ramman has been referred to be the hero who is most human. Interestingly, he is the only one to openly inquire why Prince Adam and HeMan are never observed together. On the other hand, Crass is obstinate and protective, watching out for people she loves and being wary of strangers, as she was with Duncan and Teela, displaying envy and a worry that Adam would abandon her and the tribe. Crass furiously parted ways with the rest of the squad to head back to the Tiger tribe in order to defend them and the jungle, even though she swiftly adopted the power of Grayskull and her other identity as Ramman. Even after they momentarily lose the power, she still loves her pals enough to rescue them. If you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.
Watch out! I can't steer!